Canada's position within NATO is entering a period of adjustment shaped by growing divergence between the United States and its allies, particularly in Europe. As Washington's strategic posture becomes more unilateral and unpredictable, Canada faces a changing alliance environment in which stability, multilateralism, and long-term coordination matter more than transactional power politics. Yes, it is increasingly true that Canada will have to align its NATO stance more closely with Europe than with the United States. The strategic environment created by Washington's 2025 security doctrine, its tariff-driven economic coercion toward Canada, and its divergence from traditional NATO priorities is pushing Canada toward the European security consensus. Europe's defense posture, commitment to multilateralism, and resistance to unilateralism now align more closely with Canadian interests in collective defense, rules-based security, and industrial coordination. This does not mean abandoning the United States, but it does mean hedging by deepening alignment with Europe within NATO to preserve stability and strategic autonomy. NATO is founded on collective defense, multilateral cooperation, and alliance unity. The 2025 U.S. National Security Strategy emphasizes hemispheric dominance, industrial coercion, and transactional burden sharing. This marks a sharp departure from NATO's traditional principles. For Canada, whose security depends on predictability and rules-based commitments, reliance on a doctrine that openly weaponizes economic pressure against allies, including tariffs framed as national security measures, introduces unacceptable risk and uncertainty. European NATO members, including Germany, France, the Nordic countries, the Netherlands, and Eastern European states, have significantly increased defense spending, improved procurement coordination, and adopted consistent threat assessments related to Russia, cyber warfare, and disinformation. Canada's own assessments, particularly on Arctic security, Russia, and the information environment, increasingly mirror European positions rather than Washington's domestically driven and shifting posture. The 2024 Canada-European Union Security and Defense Partnership commits both sides to joint threat assessment, defense industrial cooperation, cybersecurity coordination, and collaboration in the information environment. These frameworks reinforce multilateralism and rules-based cooperation at a time when U.S. policy has weakened both. For Canada, this partnership provides institutional depth and strategic continuity inside NATO structures. Although NATO is a military alliance, trust underpins interoperability and cooperation. U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel, autos, potash, and agricultural products, justified under national security provisions, signal a willingness to weaponize alliance relationships for domestic political objectives. This erodes trust and reinforces the need for Canada to diversify its strategic alignment to avoid vulnerability to unilateral policy swings from Washington. European allies operate on long-horizon defense strategies and multi-year procurement frameworks. Canada's own defense modernization efforts, including NORAD renewal, Arctic surveillance, cyber defenses, and unmanned systems, depend on stable, predictable partnerships. Europe's approach aligns closely with Canada's values-based foreign policy, humanitarian commitments, and climate security priorities, including those reflected in the European Union's strategic compass. Canada's geography ensures that cooperation with the United States remains essential, particularly for NORAD, Arctic aerospace defense, and intelligence sharing. However, within NATO councils and capability development processes, Canada increasingly benefits from coordinating with Europe to protect multilateralism and avoid isolation resulting from U.S. unilateral direction. Canada is not choosing Europe instead of the United States. It is responding pragmatically to U.S. policy unpredictability, tariff-based coercion, growing European leadership within NATO, and the institutional depth of the Canada-EU defense partnership. The overall trend is clear. Canada's NATO posture is tilting toward Europe to protect national interests, preserve alliance coherence, and prevent U.S. domestic politics from undermining Canadian security. The European External Action Service provides the official confirmation and scope of the Canada-EU security and defense partnership and explains its institutional significance. Global Affairs Canada outlines Canada's objectives and priorities within EU security and defense cooperation. NATO's Vilnius Summit Communiqué establishes the alliance's current strategic priorities and collective defense commitments. The NATO Parliamentary Assembly's 2024 Annual Presidential Report offers insight into alliance governance and emerging strategic consensus. The 2025 U.S. National Security Strategy sets out Washington's evolving doctrine and its implications for allies. EURACTIV contextualizes European concerns about reliance on unpredictable partners and alliance cohesion. Viewers can pause here to view the full citations and follow links to the source material. For more fact-based content about Canadian politics, democratic health, economic trends, and rhetorical analysis, the Facts for Canadians platforms offer ongoing resources and educational material. These outlets aim to strengthen public understanding, improve media literacy, and support evidence-based democratic engagement.